So this isn't our slide, actually. This is the School of Engineering's summer series slide, and I'm obliged to tell you all these things. So please keep your microphone muted. It helps with the feedback. So I believe we are recording. We're already recording. So if you don't want to be seen, please turn your video function off, and it will only be used for the School of Engineering summer series page. I don't think we're going to distribute it anywhere else. Quite happy to take questions. I think we'll take them at the end, just to allow us to go through the presentation that we've got. And in common with the other open sessions that we have now with the university, if you can put a Q at the beginning of your question, that would be really good, I think. So we've been asked to come along and tell you something about the University of Manchester's Technical Apprenticeship Programme. I'm Colin Baines, Head of Technical Services, and I also lead on the Technical Apprenticeship Programme across the entire university. And Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Laura Jane Williams, Technical Apprenticeship Programme Coordinator. My role covers the strategic, operational and coordination of the apprenticeships and apprentices on programme supporting Colin.
Brilliant, thanks Laura. So we thought we'd tell you, really split this afternoon into a couple of different sections. So we're going to give you a little bit of sort of background about apprenticeships in general, and a little bit of their history and how they're organised across their country. But we're here for general discussion, and then we'll focus on what we're doing at the University of Manchester and how ours is perhaps a little bit different than everybody else's. And then we'll end up with hopefully some questions at the end. It'd be nice if we had at least a few questions that tax us, I think. So we'll try and keep you awake throughout. There's no music, unfortunately. That would have been quite good, wouldn't it? I haven't worked out how to do music yet. So, history of apprenticeships. I'm going to hand over to Laura for this bit, I think. Laura?
Thanks very much, Colin. So we'll start with apprenticeships in England. They can be traced back to the medieval crafts guild in the Middle Ages. It was derived from higher classes sending their children to live with host families to be trained in a specialist skill. The first national apprenticeship system of training was introduced in 1563, which included conditions that could be likened to apprenticeship minimum standards of today. However, back then, training lasted a minimum of 7 years. In the early 19th century, the popularity of apprenticeships waned, partly due to conditions in factories and the perceived exploitation of young apprentices within working environments. Later in the 1900s, a significant increase in apprenticeships was seen. There were over 300,000 apprentices each year, with newer industries of engineering, shipbuilding, plumbing, and electrical work taking part in apprenticeships. For most of the 20th century, there were no major reforms to apprenticeships, and employers criticised the system as being too restrictive, too focused on time served, and unresponsive to the industry needs. After peaking in the 1960s, apprenticeships declined, with half the number of apprentices in employment in 1995 compared to 1979. In 1993, a reform of apprenticeships took place, named modern apprenticeships. Apprenticeships would count as employees, paid a fair wage throughout their apprenticeship. During this period, the duration of apprenticeships became less of a focus, and instead, the qualifications obtained more so. An NVQ level 3 qualification is equivalent to A-levels today. Trainee apprenticeships were introduced at level 2. This was a progression route onto a level 3 course, equating to GCSEs. By the end of 1998, 250,000 people across England were studying a modern apprenticeship, with most popular sectors in business administration, engineering, and retailing. During the period of 2004 to 2010, came another rebrand for apprenticeships. Modern apprenticeships at level 3 became known as advanced apprenticeships, and level 2, simply named apprenticeships. Later, level 2 apprenticeships then changed to intermediate apprenticeships. The upper age limit of 25 was removed during this period, and the young apprenticeship scheme for ages 14 to 16 was introduced, making apprenticeships available to everyone. 2010 saw new growth in apprenticeships. Higher apprenticeships were introduced. These are the equivalent to a foundation degree and above. The young apprenticeship scheme ended, and financial incentives to employ young apprentices was introduced for ages 16 to 24. During this period, apprenticeship starts doubled to 500,000 between 2009 and 2012. Doug Richard, former Dragonstar star, was commissioned by the government to conduct the Richard Review. This was a full review of the apprenticeship system, later to form the basis of change to all apprenticeships across the whole of the UK. New minimum standards were introduced in 2012. This required all apprenticeships to last at least 1 year, with 30 hours per week work as a minimum. Functional skills in maths and English for those who may not have achieved grades A to C in earlier years became mandatory. Then came the new era for apprenticeships. Gaining the spotlight from government, a 3 million target for apprenticeship starts was pledged. The Richard Review highlighted that employers were not happy with frameworks. These were qualification biased and did not put employers in the driving seat for choosing what skills, knowledge and behaviours employers sought from employees. In 2013, the first employer trailblazer groups were formed to design new English apprenticeship standards and assessment processes, focusing on employer requirements for knowledge, skills and behaviours across all sectors. In 2017, the Institute for Apprenticeships was launched to ensure top quality apprenticeships and delivery. The Institute for Apprenticeships releases quality standards approved for delivery, the new wave of top quality employer-led apprenticeships. April 2017 saw the launch of the apprenticeship levy, with the expectation of annual investment into apprenticeships at £2.5 billion by 2020. In 2018, one of our very own apprentices joins the Institute for Apprenticeships Apprentice Panel, helping shape apprenticeships through the voice of an apprentice. Eamon, seen here, second from the left, along with our apprentices in 2018. Come 2020, 15 sector-specific routes into apprenticeships were generated. 554 apprenticeship standards were approved for delivery, with more robust assessment methods taking place, allowing employers to decide the future of education and training for their own workforce. Colin, I'll hand back to you to discuss areas of the technical apprenticeship programme.
Thanks, Laura. I'll put my cup of tea down now. Thank you for that. There's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of words, in fact, that will appear throughout the rest of this presentation, like the word standards, for instance, the new term that we have for apprenticeships nowadays. So I just wanted to run through this slide. So this is technical, comes from that Greek word techno, meaning art or skill. I think that's really what it is, the heart of what our technical staff have. I said to somebody yesterday, and I won't embarrass them by telling you who it was, that we have around about 900 staff in technical roles. And when I said that, they said, "Wow, really?" And that's fairly typical of university staff, as they don't know how many technical staff there are around. We're all sort of hidden away, aren't we, in dark corners behind labs, and health and safety stops people wandering in and finding them. So 900 staff, that's a good proportion actually of the total workforce. And we're here, of course, to support research and teaching. So without the academics and without the teaching and without the research, there would be no need for technical staff. That's what we're here to do. So that's what we would like to excel at. On the left, second one down, apprentice. The definition is a person who works for another to learn a trade or skill. And that's a very old definition, but it still works today. And our apprenticeships on the right there, we feel, do benefit the university for several reasons, and we'll come to those later on. They also give young people entry into careers. So young people leaving school, they can start a very general apprenticeship without knowing exactly what it is they want to do. So they can start in laboratory science, for instance, not knowing whether they like chemistry or whether they like biology, or even whether they like physics. We've had people rotate who started with us in laboratory, who's done a bit of work in NGI, a bit of sort of physics stroke chemistry, and they thought, this is really good. And of course, young people don't necessarily know what they want to do at that age. And sometimes maybe older people also don't know what they want to do, or they want to change. It allows them to have some academic study, and it's flexible. They get paid while they're doing it, which is great for them. That's a really great attraction for a young person, rather than go off to university and not get paid and run up a load of debt. Or, of course, that's the young people, but we could also upskill existing staff. And we'll come to some numbers about how many people are doing that across the university right now. So it hasn't got to just be the young people. Apprenticeships now are actually for anybody. So a definition of programme, a set of related measures or activities with a particular long-term aim. The long-term aim for us is to produce that thoroughly rounded, expert, well-networked individual that knows about the university, knows about the science, understands the academic aims, is really practical. So they're practical, well qualified, well rounded, and probably the best networked across the university of our staff, I would say. And we'll come to a bit more on that a little bit later. And our programme, rather than set a programme that actually is one size fits all, we definitely have not done that right from the off. So we look at every individual, of what they like doing, what are they best at, what can we put them into to give them a little bit more experience of something else, to find out if there's another area that maybe they would like better. So absolutely individual, very much bespoke. No two apprentice programs are the same. And we pride ourselves on doing that. And that's one of the reasons we are so very much different than most other apprenticeship programs across the country. I'm losing count of who's doing what slide now, but this is mine. So apprenticeships before 2017 were known as frameworks. They were a framework in the standard sense, that really what was taught at those times was decided by the colleges. Employers didn't have any say in that. Employers just took whatever the college provided. And that's worked at a certain level for so long. But quite rightly, that was coming into question. They were between 12 months and 60 months duration. 12 months, of course, is really for those lower level of apprenticeships, and they still are for the lower level of apprenticeships. 12 months isn't very long to learn anything, we all know that. But at the level twos, maybe it's an administrative type role, you can learn a significant amount in 12 months. Technically, you can't learn a lot in the first 12 months. They had, of course, set entry requirements. They have some sort of assessment prior to going in. You needed to have functional skills. You needed to have your maths and English before you went into those. They always had an academic qualification because they were based and developed by colleges. So they had that college element. The colleges were driving this. And the individuals had to complete that portfolio of competence. They would do that themselves. And at the end of the process, the provider actually then would claim money from the government for a successful on-time completion. So there was always great emphasis on timely completion. So if people struggled, and some people do, and they go over by a few months, the colleges would get less money proportionally. And so they were very keen to push people through and get people over the line, which is great if everything was above board, if you like. But the feeling was that maybe some of the marks were being enhanced so that you could actually get people over the line earlier and claim this money from the government. So I think it had its problems before 2017. We've mentioned routes. Routes is a government term. So the Institute for Apprenticeships have got 14 routes, and I'm not going to read them out, but there's 14 areas there. This is based on the Richard report, and these are the 14 different areas of technical skill. So every technical skill has to fit into one of these 14 areas. Um, I'm a member, in fact, of Health and Science, so Route 10 there. So I work for the IFA, free of charge, I have to say. It's a voluntary role, no money, unfortunately. I work for Health and Science, and what we do is we look at everything that comes through as a new apprenticeship to make sure it meets the current standards, it fits what the employer wants, it has the right sort of financial arrangement, and it fits alongside everything else. So standards nowadays, they have to head towards a role or a number of roles. They can't just be blind. There has to be something that tends to be young people, that the young people are heading for. The top right is the number of approved standards to June 2019. I know we're a year out of date here, but this is the latest officially released government figures. Yes, it is quite small, Paul. I can see you getting near your screen there. So, I mean, we've got close on 500 a year ago. I think it's probably close on 700 or so now. And if you could see the graph now, you would see that it was starting to plateau. So there was never an intention just to keep throwing new standards in and approving them month on month on month. Clearly, that was what it was at the very beginning, because we needed to get some new standards out there. But what's happening now is you don't want 10,000 standards, because there's just too many. And how would you then choose between 27 that all look the same? So we don't want to do that. So 700, 800, 900 maybe is my prediction of where the top might be. And then we're going to go back and review those that were actually approved early on to make sure that they fit current standards for quality. Do they fit the current workplace? Is this what we want? Is this where we want skills to go? Is this what we're missing in the country? So we'll go back. There will be new ones, but also we'll be deleting some of the old ones that maybe there's been very poor take-up, maybe for whatever reason. Bottom right just gives the four, and it's not that we've not been able to count with the 2, 4, 9, 10. Those are the numberings of the route panels on the left-hand side. So there are 4 routes there that the university is using right now. That's not to say we can't use any others, but so far that's where we have where we've got to. I believe this one is Laura's. Am I right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you. So post 2017, apprenticeships were moving to standards from frameworks. These are employer funded and typically lasting between 12 to 60 months in duration. All standards have set entry requirements. This means that you would need this level of knowledge to be able to achieve the course. So for example, a level 3 apprenticeship may ask for 5 GCSEs, grades A to C in a specific area to be able to join onto the apprenticeship. If you didn't have these, then you would go for a lower apprenticeship at level 2, gain those qualifications and then move back up again. On the right of your screen, you can see a simplified version of an apprenticeship standard and its structure. The selection of the standard to start an apprentice on is absolutely crucial. Ensuring the apprentice can complete the course within the job role, meet all the requirements of the apprenticeship in full. So that first step's crucial. Employers, now in the driving seat, can select the endpoint assessment organisation. This is the awarding body for certification of the full apprenticeship. So for example, if you're in an engineering environment, you can pick someone that's specific to engineering rather than it just being a localised general certification. Again, that then inputs into the quality apprenticeship. Formative assessment and functional skills are still part of the apprenticeship structure. However, there's now more flexibility within the levels because of the standards. The academic qualification still exists. This is not always mandatory across all levels and standards, although employers can incorporate this as part of their programme where it's not a mandatory requirement. A portfolio of evidence is collated throughout the apprenticeship, focusing on competence and skills alongside set expected behaviours. So this is the knowledge, the skills and the behaviours that employers say that they're looking for from an employee. Apprenticeship standards contain gateways, meaning at each stage the apprentice is assessed to meet set quality standards. They can't move through these gateways until those standards have been met. The final step, endpoint assessment, This is where the apprentice will demonstrate their learnt skills through varied methods, discuss their knowledge of their role, demonstrate the knowledge of their role, show their skills, and show their ability to understand the organisation as a whole. Finally, they'll sit a case study. This is much like an exam, but it's scenario based. Once all these processes have been met and completed, the apprentice graduates with a pass or distinction grade, and a successful claim for the apprenticeship can be made. There is variations across different standards about the endpoint assessment and what that might be, but that's sort of the block standard at the moment. Colin, if you'd like to come back in and discuss the mysteries of the 20% off the job.
20% off the job. So this has really had some bad press across the entire country. What is 20% off the job training? So here is one of our apprentices, and he's one of our building services technicians. And that's not his job. His job really isn't plastering, but to learn about the fabric of buildings, it's really good if you can get involved. So plastering is one of the trades that he's being involved with, amongst electrical and woodwork and all sorts of interesting things. So here he is making probably quite a hash of it by the look of it at the minute, but it was early days, I guess. And he hasn't got to become a competent plasterer, because that's not really what he's there for. So he's there to look after the fabric of the building and do the interface with the estate. So when you want a new piece of kit, new lab, and you want some new services in, he's the guy that will come in and discuss that with you and then do the interface with the estate. So you don't have to do that. He'll take all the information from you. He'll understand what the walls are made of. He'll understand how difficult it is to get the pipes in. And therefore take that responsibility away from you. You go and get on with your research, whatever you're doing, and let this guy sort of get these things in for you. So he's got a very varied job. But as an apprentice, 20%, 1 day in 5 of every week whilst you're an apprentice, you have to do something that is not in your normal day-to-day job. So the definition is, it's a set time within an apprenticeship, allowing apprentices to learn new skills, upskill existing skills, and to develop knowledge and behaviours to a level commensurate with their role. Now, that's fine, but it can't be whatever their final role can be. Let me just give you this. So why do we have to have it at all? Mostly, you have to have this because the government says so. You can't be an apprentice and you can't get paid. You can't use your levy pot unless you can evidence 20% off the job. That's the main reason. That's the only reason people do it most of the time. We love this 20% because this 20% allows us to do what these guys are doing on the right here. So this black and white picture is 3 of our mechanical apprentices given a task to put some sketches together to design something. I'll just give you 10 seconds for anybody to shout over what you think they're designing. They've got probably 3 or 4 different designs there. Any engineers amongst you that might want to shout up, what do you think they're designing? Nobody can guess, can they? Well, this is young minds. So this is allowing young minds to be completely free. And because they're not building anything at this point, so it doesn't have to be buildable. It's what can we do? I think the remit for this one, I was struggling with Laura earlier on this morning, trying to remember what we'd asked them to do. I think this was, if you had to build something for the Halley Orchestra as an instrument that made authentic sounds, so it couldn't be electronic, it had to be percussive, or it had to be a string instrument or wind instrument. How could you make noise with stuff? So they've drawn, I can't tell you what they've drawn because I've no idea now. But that's off the job. So they won't be doing that ordinarily in their job. These guys will be standing next to a machine making things. So this is complete blue sky thinking, and it allows them to develop with 20% of the time allowed to develop with free skills and just free time to do whatever, anything we want them to do. We love them to do this, and they do an awful lot more than the 20% that's required. Let me move on a little bit. So off-the-job training, it's a new skill. It can be college attendance. So whilst they're doing their college, of course, that 1 day per week is already accounted for. because they're at college. But college doesn't run 52 weeks of the year, so you've still got to pick up the rest of those weeks. Annual leave doesn't count, so you can knock those off if you wanted to. But we tend to do it probably at a rate of 30-35% throughout the year, because we think it's really, really important. The downside for managers here, and this is where it gets the bad press, is it does mean that 20% of the time you're not getting any effort from this particular apprentice. Because some companies feel these apprentices should be contributing to the bottom line from day one, and we don't feel that. We feel they're still in training. If they start to contribute, fine, that's okay, and they can contribute. And certainly after a year or two, they are contributing quite a lot in a lot of different areas, but we shouldn't be relying on them. They are supernumerary. They're in excess of the numbers that we should be using. We shouldn't be relying on these to do the work. So we love this. And simply, what doesn't count as that 20%? Really anything that they would ordinarily be expected to do in their job. So anything they would ordinarily do on a day-to-day basis cannot be considered part of this 20%. But it does allow us great flexibility. And it depends how you read the guidelines, of course. I think, and there's a link at the bottom. So if anybody's really interested and downloads this presentation, there's a link at the bottom to tell you a bit more about that. Laura, how's it all funded?
Thanks very much, Colin. So we spoke in the history of apprenticeships before about the levy being introduced. So what is the levy? So this is a tax on employers with an annual pay bill of more than £3 million. This means that less than 2% of all UK employers fit under this remit. We as a university do, so we pay this tax. These funds can be drawn down when an employer recruits an apprentice or places staff on an apprenticeship to upskill their workforce. Each employer has their own unique digital account service login, where their funds are transferred to each month. These funds are used to pay providers for tuition. These are normally colleges or universities. We deem them as providers. Payments are made via the PAYE system. The government wanted the payments to be easy and seamless for employers. Using the payroll system kept costs for employers down as the admin mimicked that of ongoing processes. Employers have round-the-clock access to the digital account service, meaning that they have full access to the levy cost schedules, outgoing payments, duration of apprenticeships, cost per apprentice, and providers on contract. In addition, they can see what funds remain or what's going out the following month. Colin, back over to you for accessing apprenticeships.
So we thought we'd just run through how you might access one. So if anybody wanted to do an apprenticeship of any sort, how would you go about it? So don't run through this straight 1 to 6. Let me guide you through it. So top left, who can be an apprentice? It can be anybody now. It used to have an age limit. It doesn't have one now. So even I, with my grey beard, could go and study and be an apprentice. No problem whatsoever. I'd have to have my line manager's approval, of course. So how you do it, number one, you would choose an apprenticeship that fits what you want to do. And of course, if you're working at the university, it would have to be something the university wants you to do too. So there's a bit of compromise there, I guess. But you choose something that fits you and fits the university. And you do that by going to number 2, and you go to the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education's website. It's a great site. It's really easy to navigate. It's got all the standards on there. It tells you what's in the standard. It tells you who delivers it and how they deliver it. So it's a great place to be, a load of information there. And if you've got staff, of course, that want to start doing this, you can do that together. It's really very, very easy. It's well thought out. Unlike a lot of computer systems, it works really well. It's a government system too, so it's a big surprise there. But what that will show you, the routes we've seen before, all that list of routes, they're in those categories, and they're known now as standards. So it used to be frameworks years ago. It's now standards. There are some frameworks still running, but they're being closed. So everything now is a standard. But within a standard, you might have a core and option. So it might have a central core that's the same for everybody, and then the pathways are different depending on what your specialism needs to be. So you can choose a standard, and then you can choose a pathway through that standard. The site will tell you where the providers is, but the bottom line here, 4, 5, 6, are what the management team would do for you. So they would select the provider, they'd discuss with you what the delivery model options might be, because some people like, in fact, we've got apprentices now studying at the University of Kent. That's true, isn't it, Laura?
It is, yeah.
So University of Kent, which is in Canterbury, I think, amazingly. But they do that remotely, so they don't ever have to go. But they quite like that, and that works for some people, but it doesn't work for some others. Some people like the face-to-face tuition, obviously. So there's several delivery models, and all standards have a variety of models depending on who's delivering it, and they don't all have them all, but they do have a selection. And then there's the nitty-gritty of filling out all the contracts, learning agreements, and they're legal documents. You don't need to be involved with that at all. That's done by ourselves and through HR and the legal department. Accessing the levy payment, so the university pays this levy payment. It costs us something like £2 million a year that we pay from our salary bill into the levy pot, from which we can draw down money to pay our providers, so the people that are providing the academic element of our apprenticeships. We can't use it to pay salaries, so we can't buy our way out of this. We still have to pay the salaries of the apprentices, but we can use it for the training. And then all you do is press that green button bottom right, and you begin your apprenticeship, and hopefully it all works out wonderfully for you. It's really quite easy, actually, and I do wonder if we started to advertise this across the university, what the take-up might be. Talk about that later, I suppose. So I just thought I'd run very quickly. I'd probably take an hour to discuss all these really if we needed to, but I don't want to do that. Our current objectives, partly the apprenticeship programme can start to solve the demand for skilled staff. Clearly, when we take somebody on, it takes a few years to skill them up. So it isn't instant. We started in 2013, so we've got some history now. We've got some people who have come out at the end, and we'll come to that in a second. So we are actually filling our staff pool from the bottom up, as I like to think of it. So we can't do it instantly, but we can do it over a number of years. But for that, we would need to understand what our future skills demand would be. So we need to know what we've got, and we can do that with some sort of survey. But also we need to know and especially academics, what academics might be doing in 5 and 10 years' time. It's a really hard question, I know, because sometimes you don't know what you're going to be doing in 5 and 10 years' time, but it would be really good to know what skills you think you might need, and then we can start to think about how we might fill that. It does help our social responsibility. We have tried to aim to recruit locally. Now, locally in the beginning in 2013 was Greater Manchester, which isn't very locally, I know, and there's like a Falklands exclusion zone, which goes way up north. More recently, we've tried to sort of narrow that down and sort of within the ring road, and we've had some successes getting more people from closer to the university. The equal opportunities really is a BAME statement. I mean, our BAME statistics way back in 2013 were really poor because we hadn't really considered it. So, in fact, I think when we started in 2013, there was nobody we could count as BAME in that first couple of years of intake. But last year's, I think, and I've forgotten the numbers, but it was over 40%, I think, last year, and it was 35% or something the year before. Now, I dare say it's not going to keep on increasing, but we have gone from 0 to the last probably 3 years where we've had a third of our, not our applicants, third of our people that we actually intake who've actually have got some sort of BAME characteristic. Setting the standard of excellence within apprenticeship programs really is a reference to the fact that we believe what we have here at the University of Manchester is sufficiently different than every other apprenticeship program across the entire country. We have been around a bit talking to other people, finding out what they do. They are always coming to us, asking us, how have we managed to do what we do? We send our apprentices around lots and lots of different rotations, and some numbers coming up in a minute. And it's one of the things that sets us aside. We give them lots and lots of experience in lots and lots of different areas. Most people don't even try to do that because they're very focused that they want this individual to end up with this skill, and therefore they don't need to learn anything else except this skill. And we don't actually think that's true. We want them to be very wide in their outlook. the integration with faculties, I've said this already, I think they're probably the best networked staff that we have because they travel across the whole of the university, not just our faculty. They don't have any boundaries. They don't know, they don't understand faculty boundaries. We've made those boundaries up. They're just artifacts that we've built. We have different faculties. We have different, well, we had lots of different schools at one point, lots of different departments. We have different schools, you know, and none of that really exists, does it? All that we have is bricks and mortar actually in different buildings. And that is physical. The rest of it, we've just made up. So we've ignored all that and we've gone across the entire university with our program. And these people that are going through the program don't see those same barriers as you and I might who've been in the university a while thinking, oh, that's in a different faculty, we can't go and talk to them. You know, what goes on in that building next door? We've obliterated all that. I think we've done really well with that. Providing staff development opportunities for all staff. This we haven't done much of yet, numbers coming in a minute. So apprenticeships traditionally have been for the younger, early career people. So we've taken on apprentices between the ages of 16 and 18 typically. But of course, it's open to all staff, subject to their line managers and all the rest of it. So I think that might be a way of using the levy pot a little bit more efficiently than we do now. I guess we're wasting quite a lot of it right now. If we don't use it, it goes back to government and somebody else uses it. So it's not completely wasted, but it's a waste for the university if we don't use a bit more of it, I guess. And of course, we're always looking to align with University of Manchester values. And I shouldn't say it, should I? But I guess that University of Manchester values change from time to time. So we just need to keep abreast of those changes and make sure that we're adhering to whatever the latest, I was going to say fad then, I shouldn't say that, whatever the latest values might be for the university, I think. 2013, the beginning, I guess it's still me, isn't it? So just some numbers now to give you some idea of where we were. So 2013, we started in September 2013. We developed the apprenticeship program with a desire to fill those skills, get some young people in. And it was the technical service managers, TSMs at the time, and myself that put this together, blue sky thinking. There were no financial constraints at that time, not like now, where we do have financial constraints. It was really open. So that enabled us to think, well, what do we need to do? Let's just do what we need to do to get this off the ground. Rachel Brearley backed this. She pushed it through faculty and really just told us to get on and do it. So we did. We have 12 starts in that September. We had 7 rotation placements within what was known at the time as EPS. Of course, it wasn't FSE in 2013, but 7 rotation placements. That's just 7 individual locations across the university. That's all we'd managed to get for year 1. And we were only studying right at levels 2 and 3, so right at the bottom end. And we had some voluntary staff support, good support, but not very many, and completely voluntary. But to grow the program, and here are some of our apprentices again. Eamon's in this one again. She's in almost every photograph. She's very photogenic, actually. So we have to try and put her in every one. We need to keep looking at what the business need might be and how that changes in the university. And this is why I keep saying every time I meet any academics now, I want to know what skills you want. Tell me what skills you need. This is what we need. And we can assist with some sort of succession planning. That's a hard word to say. And that goes with skills retention, I guess. So those 2 points are almost the same sort of thing for people that are leaving. It's not necessarily a succession of people that are leaving because they are retiring, but people that might be leaving mid-career. And the skills development is developing people who are already staff. And I want to just touch on the age profile of technical staff. So I've got a slide coming up, and it shows the age profile. And this is interesting. It's from 2019. So these bars are in blocks of 5 years. So starting at sort of 15 to 19. So you can see those are right at the bottom and would have been apprentices at that time. I think probably all of them were apprentices at that time. And then we had 3 people over the age of 70 at the other end. It's a year old. So those people that were in these bars of 50 plus are still in those bars of 50 plus, but may have jumped from one category to the next. But you can see here that we have something like 270 staff over the age of 50. And that's about 30%. This is a university figure, not a faculty figure. That's about 30% of our entire staff over 50 years old. And given we have VS schemes from time to time, and faculty reviews. Some of these people are going to go, and they may be taking skills with them, not necessarily, but taking skills with them that we need. So this is an issue, and it's always been a little bit of an issue. It's not as bad as I thought it was. The word on the street was we had a much more of a peak above 50. Our peak, as you can see, actually is right down in the sort of 30 to 40, where we've got those two of the largest bars there. That's where our peak is. And that really people didn't know that until we grabbed this data from HR and plotted this out. So that was a surprise to me. I thought that peak could be further up because that's what people were telling me. So some very quick numbers now. So we've seen the 2013 numbers. We have 7 specific apprenticeships now, different types of apprenticeship. We've had 50 starts. So we didn't carry on with a 12 per year. We had 12 to get started and then moderated it to where we thought vacancies might appear. 50 starts. We should have, of course, celebrated our 50th, but COVID came along and it really stopped us celebrating our 50th. So maybe we should do that when we get back. 22 of those 50 are now in substantive posts in the university. Now, it's fair to say that we have never created a post for any of our apprentices. They always take posts that are advertised for anybody. They're in a good position to fight for it because they're highly networked. They know the university. They've been through lots of rotation locations. They've been to college, they've learned the academic bit, and they're now highly skilled. And we give them interview practice and CV writing practice too. So they're in a really good position. So 22 of those have got substantive posts. 18 remain on programme. And for those that are quickly adding up the 22 and the 18, no, that doesn't make 50. That leaves us with 10, which means that there's 10 hanging about somewhere. So it's not all good news. There were 10 that have exited the programme at some point or another. About half of those have exited through our 8-month probationary period. So we use that really harshly. So if they don't work really hard for those 8 months, they go out the door. We only want people that really want to be here, that want to sort of push the boundaries and get on. So we use that. And then in addition to those, we've had a couple of people that have gone off to do degrees outside of the university. So they've used as almost like a gap year, really, like a paid gap year, and then decided, actually, I'd like to go into a full-time degree. So we're counting those as successes, but not successes within the university. And that leaves us with a couple who've gone and got posts outside of the university. They've decided the university work wasn't for them. And I think on both, as I remember it, both occasions, those people actually cited salary as their reason to move. They could get a higher salary outside of the university. Having said that, one of them that did leave quoted his new salary, but in fact it included overtime and weekend work as well. So you've got to take everything into consideration when you decide to leave the university. I don't think he was before he left. So he's working a lot more hours than he was with us, but he's earning a lot more money. So the rotation placements have now gone up to 37. So there are 37 placements around the university in 21 discrete locations. So we have capacity to have 37 apprentices working, getting their practical skills across the entire university at any one time in 21 different locations. We need to increase that for a variety of reasons, really, but we're getting there. We're now studying 2 to 7 range. So 7 is at master's level. So that's way beyond what we were doing way back in 2013. And now we've also got 15 PS staff who are studying apprenticeships. I guess they're not apprentices as such because they're still members of staff. They have a full-time role, but they are actually studying an apprenticeship. And I just shoved these on. Actually, Laura put these on. Laura made the whole slide, actually. That we have won some awards. It takes time to win awards, as you know, because you've got to write stuff and evidence stuff, and it sort of takes you away from what you're here to do, really. But we've tried to do a bit of that along the way. So we have won some awards for the programme and for the apprentices. I think Laura might be able to can you give us a flavour of the sorts of awards we won, Laura?
Yeah, certainly. So we've won the Employer of the Year award at the annual apprenticeship conference, which is quite big in apprenticeship circles. We've won the Better Worlds Award within the university. and our apprentices have won medals at regional and national level, competing in world skills, alongside an apprentice winning the Distinguished Achievement Award for PS staff. So we've got a smattering that's just sort of touch on some of the successes we've had with the programme and with our apprentices.
Thank you, Laura. So here's a little bit of a summary, I suppose. So we use these routes, as previously mentioned. These are apprentices currently on programme now. So these are the ones that are going through there, and there's normally a 4-year fixed term contract for them in laboratory science, animal science. You can read that list yourselves along with the numbers. The number 7 there, the technical business administration, was our last apprentice I think we took on. So we actually have our own administrator now, administrating the apprenticeship programme, but learning administration at a low level at the same time. That, in fact, was the way of getting some admin support at sort of no cost to the faculty, because it's an apprenticeship. We do have to pay for it, but it comes from the apprenticeship budget and not from the sort of the faculty staff budget. And then we've got some staff on apprenticeships, a number of them there in laboratory science, mechanical engineering, warehouse operative are in stores, and it's a long title, but that's the title of their apprenticeship, business admin, and we've got 3 people doing masters in business admin as well. So there's a smattering of staff taking up this opportunity. This is slightly complicated, and we're sort of running out of time a little bit, but I just wanted to say that what this shows here, the top half of this, is that we've got apprentices in substantive posts. So top left, laboratory science, mechanical engineering and animal science, 8, 12 and 2. Those are the people that have come through the programme and got real jobs at the university in those locations on the top right: chemistry, material science, biology and the rest. And there's one in St Mary's as well, doing placental research. And so they do end up all over the university, sort of peppering across the whole university. So we haven't targeted any area yet. We could, you know, if we had that as a strategy that we need to target a particular area, we could do that, but so far we haven't. And then bottom left is the staff that are on apprenticeships, as previously mentioned, and bottom right is where they sit in the university. I think probably just to summarise, I think I'd like to say that our aims right now are really quite simple. We need to identify those skills that we require in the next 5 to 10 years' time. We need that in advance so we can start working on them. We need academics in particular to tell us what it is that they want from technical services in the future. From that, we can devise suitable programs of study. And we can do that through apprenticeships, and we're doing that already. We just need to carry on doing more of that. But there are other means to do that as well. But apprenticeships is only part of it. And if we do that, we can raise the visibility of the programme, which we're doing now, I suppose, but also raise the visibility of technicians and all that they do. And that's part of technician commitment, something else that the university has subscribed to. And we need to do that. And if we do all that, we think that we can create this sustainable workforce for the future, not only financially sustainable, but sustainable in terms of skills as well. Laura, anything to add before we go to questions?
I think just as a thank you really across the university for staff that do take part in developing apprentices, taking time out, a volunteer of their day to sort of train and interact with apprentices. You know, the programme wouldn't be the success it is today without that contribution. And as Colin mentioned, we do look at what else we can do. So if anyone after this has anything they'd like to sort of contribute or look into, please contact us.
Thanks, Laura. I'm going to stop the share now because I don't know how to see any questions, if there are any, which there aren't at the minute. If there are questions, bang them in the chat. That'd be nice.
I think there's a couple.
Oh, there is a question. Sorry, I've missed it. Yeah. What qualifications does the trainer need and how is this verified? That sounds like something for you, Laura.
It does, thank you. Training, how to verify. So I think Paul, if you're thinking about the trainer in terms of the mentor or the local line manager, which is what we refer to people that look after our apprentices in workshops and labs, etc. If you're looking at what qualifications they need, They don't need anything legit, but we do want them to have enough knowledge and skills in their expertise area to be able to pass on good quality skills to our apprentices. So the right way of doing things, why it's important, and basically mimic that so that it follows through new staff.
Okay, thanks, Laura. There is a question from Alexander Lincoln saying that there might be a space for an apprentice in his work area, and who and how does he approach for that? The answer to that is you go to Laura Jane Williams and express your interest, Alex, and she'll have a chat with you to see what it is, what your area is, and see if we can use it. We're very open to discuss that with anybody. So thanks for that one. How do the staff apprenticeships work? From John Cuff. What a massive question. Where's John on my... I've hidden him somewhere, have I? Oh, there he is. He's got he turned his camera off. That's very sly. John, come and talk to us. But briefly, what happens is you decide what you want to do, go to your line manager, discuss it with them, get their backing, because clearly without their backing, you can't do the 20% off the job business, because you're only putting in a sort of 4-day week then, aren't you? And that wouldn't be fair on everybody else, would it? So get your line manager's backing and then come to Laura and discuss how we can achieve it.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. It was actually just a general question. I wasn't actually thinking of doing one, but I was just interested how it would work. Yeah. Okay.
It's too late now. Laura's probably signed you up already.
Oh, I'll disappear again now.
Thanks, John.
A question from Mike Hughes. What support and training is given to the staff in areas where the apprentices are sent? Yeah, it's a great one, isn't it? So, I mean, you know Mike because you have definitely been involved with the apprenticeship program right from the very beginning. And Mike is being a bit coy here, I suppose. So he's looked after some first year laboratory apprentices. So those are the young people that come in that just break all the glassware for the first 6 months. So they go in with Mike, and Mike takes them through all that this sort of interesting and important health and safety stuff to try and get them sort of up to speed. So Mike's been really good. We need more of Mike, actually, more Mikes, I should say, and we need Mike and more Mikes. We don't give any training as yet, but we have been discussing in our new groups how we might educate what we're calling local line managers, people like Mike who take on a number of apprentices and look after them for a few months. We know we haven't done that sort of perfectly, and any advice would be gratefully received. We are trying to put a pack together because there's lots of things that they don't know about, who handles their annual leave, who handles performance issues, day-to-day issues about managing, members of staff actually. So thanks for the question. We will put a pack together. If you want to contribute to that, anybody actually, but Mike especially, very welcome.
Just to support that, Colin, we do tend to, when local line managers take on an apprentice, it's a new area, we do meet with them first to see whether the area is appropriate, what skills can be learned, does it work for both of you? After that process, then we will come and visit with you on a regular basis to make sure that it's working for you, it's working for the apprentice, if you need any support, if you've got any feedback or comments. So there is that structure, but we are working on sort of developing something to be more structured to support the local line manager specifically.
And I'd say in addition, we always joke about it being a money back guarantee, not that you've paid anything, but what happens is if it doesn't work for you or the apprentice, we will pop in and just lift the apprentice, I'm doing it now, lift the apprentice out and move them somewhere else. And we've done that a number of times where it just hasn't worked for a variety of reasons. Sometimes we can tell the apprentice why, sometimes we can't, and we have to sort of make it up as we go along. But so if it's not working, so there's really no risk to you actually in having an apprentice. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we just come and take them away again and replace them if you want them replacing with someone else. MIB in particular, looking at Alex Henderson now, he's got MIB in his title. We had one at MIB, didn't work, took them out. And I think it was because we between us had misjudged the level of the apprentice versus what MIB's expectations were. They just didn't match, and that didn't work very well. So we never really quite resolved that one. We've got that to resolve yet, if Alex is here. Paul Matavenga says, to what extent do we strategically place apprentices in areas to address single points of failure and loss of critical skills? Not at all very much yet. I mean, that's part of workforce planning, I think, Paul, which is what I was wobbling on a bit about at FLT yesterday. I think it's something we don't do very well. We might do a little bit of that locally here and there, but we have no sort of overall overarching sort of view of it. And I think, you know, we need to work a lot harder there. We can share our skills and share our people a lot more than we do now. So I'll be perfectly honest, no, we don't, but yes, we should. And it's on my target list, in fact. Mike wants to get more involved. No, I want to get more of my staff involved in day-to-day supervision. Yeah, great. Okay, well, please talk to Laura and let's organise something, Mike. John Cuff, can you help staff achieve chartered status of an engineering institution? That question actually fits really with technician commitment, John. So technician commitment is looking, there's a group looking at, it probably comes under recognition actually. So I think we've got a group whose title is recognition, who's looking particularly at professional registration, actually, I think was what they're doing. So chartered is can be part of that. I'll take that question away and see where they're up to. You'll see some stuff coming from technician commitment quite soon, I think.
I think I have sent an invite out, John, to yourself for a presentation and a TCP2 surgery get together. If you've not received that, just let me know and I'll resend it out for you on behalf of Colin.
Brilliant. Okay, so there are no more questions and we're a minute over time, so apologies, we're 60 seconds over time, never mind. Those people at home won't mind too much, the kettle will wait, I guess. Any final questions before we go? Thanks, Paul. All right, and Adele remembers me now, that's good. Yeah, I remember you because you always have got an opinion and not afraid to express it, I can remember that. Okay, so thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Laura, as well. Great support in that. Laura wrote most of that. I've only titivated around the outside. It's Laura's presentation. Thank you very much, all, and we'll perhaps see you next time.
Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. Bye.